Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be doing my 14.3 support tier list. So if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. To begin with, there are a couple of changes here, not a huge amount. Support was probably the least impacted role this patch in terms of meta shifts. We still have the four same champions. There's no real changes there. All four of them still massively outperform the remaining pool. Whether it's through the amount of outputs of resources that you can utilize, the just generalistic power of the champion, their flex potential. There's just a lot of value there. So let's cover them. To begin with, however, there are a couple of changes. So Pyke is going to move up to the S tier. Pyke actually has a really interesting build at the moment, which you can opt into. It's got a very limited sample size, but Voltaic Cyclosword Pykes, so, well, I mean, it looks really good on paper. The item is 2,900 gold in cost. It has a better stat line than Umbral Glaive, which is what most people opt into. The damage is very nice on it, combined with the slow. There is a lot of power in this item. It allows you to more successfully land your combos. You gain just additional control power from this item. And being Pyke and having access to your E and W, which are, well, one is a stealth, one is a dash. You can stack up the item quickly. Yeah, there's just a lot of power here. I'd recommend giving it a try as a first item option. Sometimes you do need the vision denial. That is something you can opt into. People still do build Umbral Glaive too often on some of the support champions, Senna being the other one who this item is being built on too often. But yeah, for the most part, try out Voltaic Cyclosword. Edge, Youmuu's both look like decent options. Hubris, if you're snowballing, is a very solid option as well. I would recommend avoiding the Axiom Mark. You don't need it as much as some of your other options. Opportunity is a good item if you are looking for a bit more bonus lethality. If you're just looking to amp the damage and the value of some of your lethality scalers, then that is a good option. And you can wrap it up with like a Grudge later on into your build. You kind of don't really get that far, and you do still want to close out games relatively early on Pyke. He doesn't scale particularly well. He needs gold to get his advantages and then really spike early, and then he will just eventually fall off. But yeah, you're looking at something like if you're looking at something like a Voltaic Cyclosword into something like a Youmuu's, on top of like a Bloodsong, maybe an Opportunity or an Edge, there's just a lot of power here. He is a very solid S tier option. One of the closer options to the top four, but yeah, he's a good hook champ and got buffed, so quite nice there. Karma, it got nerfed. She lost a bit of late game flat damage on her Q. That went up by 5 at base ranks, and then it went down by 40, I believe, later on, which is a relatively large nerf. It does mean the champion loses a decent chunk of her scaling. She also lost 20% AP ratio on that RQ. She was a high A tier pick, now she's a low A tier pick. She's still powerful as a lane bully. I wouldn't really recommend playing her elsewhere, or playing her as anything else. You don't really want to play around her shields. They're not as valuable as a lot of the other champions. That is something she does benefit from later on into the game, though. Like the multi-shield, the multi-targeting shield is very nice. She is also a multi-role flex, so there is some value there. But I'd recommend other supports at the moment. But yeah, still a solid lane bully if you are looking for something along those lines. Brand is going to stay in the S tier. He is still a good S tier option. He's not towards the bottom of the S tier. He does a huge amount of damage. The nerfs were towards his passive burn to monsters, and then like 10 flat on his Q. So the support nerfs weren't particularly heavy, and he's not being adjusted or changed next patch, so he is still very powerful in both jungle and support. Yeah, solid S tier option. Once you have like your Leandri's Rylai, he's really strong with these two items, and there's just a lot of power there. So yeah, solid S tier pick. Moving on, so Maokai is going to stay in the S plus tier. They try to adjust him away from being a support dominating pick. He was sat on something like a 59% win rate last patch, which is absurd. And yet somehow everyone who plays this champion in my game seems to completely agree with it, which is just unfortunate. But yeah, this champion was clearly really powerful. He is still clearly really powerful. He is being nerfed again next patch, but just generalistically, he's losing 4 armor, flat 5 damage on Q, and a bit of CC on ultimate. But yeah, this pick is very strong. If you're opting into something like a Trailblazer, I believe Frozen Heart is a very solid option on him. Yeah, Trailblazer into something like a Locket, you can opt into Frozen Heart. Kaenek Rooken is a solid option. Knight's Vow if you're looking to be a bit more supportive. Thornmail into if you need a bit of anti-heal. I'd recommend sticking to mostly Boots of Swiftness or Lucidities. Both these are cheap options and very strong on him. Yeah, there's just a lot of power here in this champion. His builds are really good at the moment. And yeah, still a solid S+ pick. Zyra. So Zyra got adjusted this patch to be a bit better within the jungle and the mid lane. She did gain some power in those roles. She lost a small amount of power support, but she's still very strong in low elo. For the most part, she is a good S tier pick, similar to Brand. Once you have like your 2-item spike, she's really obnoxious to play against. Her plants can counter a lot of champions which don't have good ways of dealing with them. They make for oppressive zone control options. There's just a lot of power here, and yeah, she finds herself in a really solid spot in the S tier. Camille is actually going to move up to the S tier. So Camille's support is very strong. People have finally caught on to the power of this pick. The early game buffs did wonders for her. If you're opting into something like a Hail of Blades, Cindered Sky, Blood Song, Asterix Gauge kind of build, she's very powerful. Has really nice CC, good setup, good lockdown. Has peel to a degree with both a slow and a CC spell. Her all-ins are really lethal. She does a huge amount of damage. She spikes quite nicely off one item within the support role. There's just a lot of power here, and Bloodsong also gives her a lot of strength. Obviously, it being a Sheen item makes it really good. Yeah, Camille, really strong spot at the moment. Great support option. If you understand the functionality of your champion, she's very good. Set is going to be added as a C tier option. People have started playing it again because Hilly played it on the weekend. It was terrible. It didn't really do that much. Set has the problem of dying too quickly at the moment. Everyone is really mobile, and it just means he struggles a lot. He is within the C tier for this reason. And the other pick which I've seen it pop up a bit more again, obviously MF support is a classic. We've seen it in the past. We've started seeing it a bit again. It's a D tier pick. I wouldn't really recommend it. It requires too many resources to really be powerful, and at that point just play a different AP champion. There are lots of options within the support role which spike at cheaper items, spike early on into the game, are less vulnerable, have hard CC. Yeah, there's just the main selling point of APMF is obviously the E, the slow combined with the damage. You can apply bans for it, but there are just better champions for this. So she's going to be within my D tier. And then I want to talk about the S+ tier. So we've got Bard, Janna, Senna, Maokai. Of course, Senna did get tagged a bit with Collector and Youmuu's being nerfed this patch. I'd still recommend opting into Youmuu's over something like an Umbreglaive first in most situations. It is still outperforming. However, you can also opt into things like Edge of Night. It is a very solid option. You can opt into Opportunity, I believe, and that is a solid option. Hubris isn't bad if you're snowballing. Eclipse has gained a bit of traction as being a good option. There's just build variations which you can kind of play around. If anything, Umbreglaive just tends to be a bit bait on a lot of champions, so look at the other options. If you need them within that game, if you need a bit more combat power, then there are choices there. Janna is correctly going Imperial Mandate first. That seems to be her best option. Something like an Imperial Mandate into a Chevaliers or an Ardent if you're playing around like a synergistic ADC. Yeah, her builds are for the most part correct. Janna very strong at the moment, synergizes really well with a lot of marksmen, and just the damage and the power of this champion, her ease of play for the most part. Yeah, there's just a lot of power here. And then Bard, of course, widely considered #1 support, is doing very well. He has lots of tank variations he can go. The Frozen Heart, the Trailblazer, the Locket, the Kaenek Rooken, all these items work really well on him. He can kind of just opt into which one works best within that lane/game situation. Later on to your build, you can still pick up things like a Mandate, Knight's Vow. You can even opt into like a Vigilant Wardstone. Redemption isn't a bad option. The champ just has too many choices. Of course, he's being nerfed next patch on 14.4, but he is the premier option on this patch. Yeah, just a lot of power there, lots of damage for how tanky he is. And yeah, those are my thoughts on the support role. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.